Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanatari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Oh my God. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Parvakacharya Asacharya Satyashri Srimad His Divine Loving Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Parvakacharya Asacharya Satyashri Srimad His Divine Loving Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Kori Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Pram Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Navadvip Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Srimati Bhakti Devi Ki Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachanini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasyatya Desatani Om Ekjanati Jana Salakaya Chaksun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this evening we are discussing chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, and the last text, text 47. Yoginām api sarveṣāṁ mad-gatenāntar-ātmanā śraddhāvān bhajate yoginām same yukta-tamo mataḥ. Yoginām api sarveṣāṁ mad-gatenāntar-ātmanā śraddhāvān bhajate yoginām same yukta-tamo mataḥ. Yoginām api sarveṣāṁ mad-gatenāntar-ātmanā śraddhāvān bhajate yoginām same yukta-tamo mataḥ. Yoginām, of yogis, api, also, sarveṣāṁ, all types of, mad-gatenāntar, abiding in me, always thinking of me, ātmanā, within himself, śraddhāvān, in full faith, bhajate, renders transcendental loving service, one who, to me, the Supreme Lord, saw, he, me, by me, yukta-tamo, the greatest yogi, mataḥ, is considered. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And of all the yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. The word bhajate is significant here. Bhajate has its root in the word braj, which is used when there is need of service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as braj. Worship means to adore or to show respect and honor to the worthy one. But service with love and faith is especially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshiping a respectable man or a demigod and may be called discourteous. But one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by his own constitution. Failing to do this, he falls down. The Bhagavatam 11.5.3 confirms this as follows. Ya isam purusham chakshad atma prabhavam ishvaram na bhajanti avajnanti snyanad brastya patantyatha. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. In this verse, also the word bhajanti is used. Therefore, bhajanti is applied to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods or to any other common living entity. The word avajanti used in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is also found in Bhagavad Gita. Avajanti mamudha. Only the fools and rascals deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Such fools take it upon themselves to write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita without an attitude of service to the Lord. Consequently, they cannot properly distinguish between the word bhajanti and the word worship. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti and bhakti yoga. Actually, yoga means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progressions towards the destination of bhakti yoga. From the beginning of karma yoga to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga without fruit of results is the beginning of this path. When karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called jnana yoga. When jnana yoga increases in meditation on the supersoul by different physical processes and the mind is on him, it is called Ashtanga yoga. And one surpasses the Ashtanga yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, it is called Bhakti yoga, the culmination. Factually, Bhakti yoga is the ultimate goal. But to analyze Bhakti yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name. Karma yogi, jnana yogi, or dhyana yogi, raja yogi, hatha yogi, etc. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of bhakti yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. Therefore, to become Krishna conscious is the highest stage of yoga, just as when we speak of Himalayan, we refer to the world's highest mountain, of which the highest peak, Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of bhakti yoga, to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shyamasundar, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is flower garland. Illuminating all sides is his glorious luster, which is called the Brahma-jyoti. He incarnates in different forms such as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he descends like a human being as the son of Mother Yasoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is the perfect child, husband, friend, and master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. This stage of the highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by bhakti yoga, as it is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. Yasya deva prabhaktir yata devi tata guru tasya te katita hi alta prakasante mahatmana. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed in the Shveta Upanishad 6:23. Bhaktirasya bhajanam tad imudro narashyana musim manakalpanam etareva naiskarmanam. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord, which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Devoid of such inclinations, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme. That is the purpose of Naishkarma. The Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1:15. These are some of the means for performance of bhakti, or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of the yoga system. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. to the 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the matter of Jnana Yoga. Jai. Om Shri Om Agiratimrandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sapitam Yena Putale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvarutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namosite Mahavananaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaur She Namaha Tapta Kanchana Gaur Hanye Radhe Vrindavanishri Vishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Srila Prabhupada. So we've been studying yoga systems for some time in the Bhagavad Gita now. And Krishna had presented just in this chapter the Sankhya Yoga system for Arjuna. And Arjuna very humbly admitted to not being qualified for this system. Arjuna was a Kshatriya. He had 3 wives. He had many children. He was a politician. He was Dhananjaya, a great provider of wealth. So it was not conducive for him. But it's so sweet how Krishna then gives him this verse. And if we look at this verse, this describes Arjuna. And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me. Arjuna always abided in Krishna. Thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. And if it's Krishna's opinion, it must be true. So he is saying that the yoga system of yoga is actually to think of Krishna. That's yoga, is thinking of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, our great acharya and teacher, an example for everyone for many ages, he really led a very interesting life when we study it. Now, yes, he was born in a renowned Vaishnava family. He had a father who was dedicated to making sure that his son had all facility for being a great Vaishnava. He would pray, and he would ask every sadhu he met to pray to Radharani that his son would become a Vaishnava. He even hired the best musicians for Prabhupada to learn classical, proper Vaishnava way to play harmonium and mridanga. And we can really hear the sounds when we listen to Prabhupada's recordings of his bhajans. And so Prabhupada had great facility. And one time in LA, he said, I've always known who Krishna was. This is very significant. He remembers at a young, even as a baby in a prawn, in a stroller, going to the temple with his friend. And when he was his first year in college, it was a challenging year, which is usually so for most students, because it's a rite of passage. Students are expected to grow up at that point and act like adults once they reach college. And Srila Prabhupada put his deities in a box because he was feeling challenged and he needed time to get his studies done. But then after a year, Krishna came to him in a dream and he said, "When are you taking us out of this box?" And which Prabhupada did. He took him out and began his worship again. So Srila Prabhupada was a leader in his amongst his peers. They respected him. And in his college years, he was very much interested in the Gandhi movement and promoting that and believed in this. But one of his friends one day, when they were walking home, Narendranath Malik, he wanted Srila Prabhupada to come see this sadhu his family had met. He wanted Srila Prabhupada's opinion, but Srila Prabhupada was not very impressed by sadhus. He had seen so many sadhus who were nonsense and beggars. In fact, a man who lived near him, who was a beggar, would put on saffron and go out when other people would go to work, and he would work all day as a sadhu and come home and take his saffron off. So Prabhupada was not so impressed with sadhus, and he didn't want to go. They were actually having a physical tussle on the street. And finally, Srila Prabhupada relented. And when they went upstairs to the rooftop to meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada was immediately taken by the presence of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He could see that this was not an ordinary personality. His tilak was paka. He was paka in all respects, and he had a radiance about him. And so, as a well-bred Indian boy, Srila Prabhupada and Narendranath paid full-out dandavat obeisances to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. But before they could even get up, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says to them, "You are educated young men. Why don't you preach the message of Lord Chaitanya throughout the world?" And Srila Prabhupada was shocked. He hadn't even exchanged pleasantries or expressed anything about himself to the sadhu who has given him an instruction. And so Srila Prabhupada, who was a Gandhi follower, he challenged, and politely and respectfully, he challenged Srila Bhaktisiddhanta by saying, "Well, who will listen to us? India is controlled by another nation. We need our independence." And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he said in a very slow, low voice, he explained to him that the message of Lord Chaitanya was more important and could help more people than any political movement or issue. And he expressed to Srila Prabhupada the urgency for people to hear this message of Lord Chaitanya's. So Prabhupada took it on his heart, and he put it foremost in his brain at that time. Actually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta subsequently gave Srila Prabhupada more instructions about preaching in English, about preaching to the West, about printing books, if he ever got any money. And Srila Prabhupada was a young man. He had a young family. He would have liked to have been able to go off, take sannyas, and leave his family, but that would have been a great irresponsibility for him. So, but he kept this desire to serve and to please his spiritual master foremost in his head. And by doing that, he began. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave him the instruction, he didn't give him a how-to book of how to accomplish all this. He didn't give him any instruction like that. He didn't give him any money to accomplish all that he had wanted him to do. No, not a farthing. He didn't even give him any connections with people who might help him. All this Srila Prabhupada had to figure out on his own. And Srila Prabhupada at that time, because he had heard through his astrology that he was supposed to be one of the wealthiest men in India. So he was thinking, well, I'll have a big business and I'll give all my wealth to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta for this movement. And he went on trying to build his business. And sometimes his business started to fail in different ways. It crumbled here, it crumbled there. And his wife was unsupportive. She had no interest in becoming initiated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. She had no interest in preaching or supporting her husband. He would have Namahatta programs and she would be upstairs with the children drinking tea and eating biscuits. She actually sold his Srimad Bhagavatam for biscuits at one time. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came to Prabhupada in dreams and he asked him to take sannyas. It's time to take sannyas. And Srila Prabhupada, he thought, I am not qualified to take sannyas. I don't know that I can deal with the austerities of taking sannyas. But material things kept getting worse. And Srila Prabhupada remembered this verse from the Bhagavatam, in which Krishna says, when I feel especially mercifully disposed towards someone, I gradually take away all his material possessions. His friends, his family, they reject this poverty-stricken person and consider him the most wretched fellow. And that's how Srila Prabhupada is feeling. So he took sannyas. Actually, when in 1970, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's appearance day in LA, and Srila Prabhupada was there, and he took Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's picture and he put it on the Vyasasana, and he sat on the floor and he spoke about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And at the end of the lecture, he was saying, I didn't want to take sannyas. I didn't want to leave my children. And then he started choking up. And when Prabhupada choked up, everybody choked up. But these weren't tears of sadness or regret. They were tears of great joy, great spiritual transcendental bliss and appreciation for his spiritual master. Because then he said, and now Srila Bhaktisiddhanta has sent me so many sons and daughters. And so we're all in this family, sons and daughters of Srila Prabhupada. But we have to understand, when he took sannyas, it was not easy. And sometimes when you look at a life of a devotee, it looks like it's not easy. You could look at the Pandavas, Draupadi and Kunti. But Kunti actually did in her prayers praise. She'd rather have these horrible calamities over and over again than to lose the association of Krishna. So there are documentaries, there are people who knew Prabhupada that will testify, that had testified that he was extremely poor as a sannyas. And any money he got, he used for printing books, like the desire of his spiritual master. In the Delhi winter, which is cold, and we're experiencing this now, he had no charter. Isn't that amazing? And he would go early in the morning to check on the printer, and he had no breakfast. And the printer would gladly provide some breakfast for him, and Srila Prabhupada would eat it, but he would work at the same time. And then, against the advice of everyone and against all odds, Srila Prabhupada went to America In the process of bhakti, we have to deal with the uncontrolled senses, with the turbulent mind, and worst of all, with the powerful false ego. This is the glory of Srila Prabhupada. He never considered what is possible, what is impossible. He just wanted to please his spiritual master. This is the difference between us and the great souls. We are asked to do something and we say, sorry, I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, or I don't have the strength, I don't have the intelligence. Srila Prabhupada was thinking, he wasn't thinking in terms of his age at 70. What kind of time does a 70-year-old have? And he wasn't considering his strength at 70. And what money did he take to America? 40 rupees? And he wasn't thinking what was possible and what was impossible. He was completely free of the false ego. His one and only thought was to please his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. That had always been his one and only thought. And there's this beautiful poem that Prabhupada wrote on the boat, the Jaladuta. And I wanted to read it because it expresses everything that we're talking about here. His consciousness and our goal for consciousness. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess you have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva Krishna. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. But I know that your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? Oh Lord, I am simply praying for your mercy that I will be able to convince them about your message. All living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will, and therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I'm very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore, I am seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure, as you like. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. Oh Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance. Make me dance, oh Lord, make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge about, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhaktivedanta, and now if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhaktivedanta. Signed, the most unfortunate, insignificant beggar, his A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, on board the ship Jaladuta, Commonwealth Pier, Boston, Massachusetts, USA, dated 18 September 1965. So to subdue this ego, the process of bhakti doesn't require fasting. It doesn't require austerities and tapas. It requires devotional service and to be completely absorbed in devotional service. The process of bhakti annihilates the false ego by becoming so engaged and concerned about the pleasure of the Lord that we completely forget ourselves. We completely forget our petty little desires and petty little grievances. And we're only think of Krishna. And we no longer consider what is possible, what is impossible. We do whatever we can. Like Krishnadas Kaviraj says, he says, by remembering the lotus feet of the Panchatattva, a dumb man can become a poet. A lame man can cross mountains, and a blind man can see the stars in the sky. In the purport, Prabhupada explains in Vaishnava philosophy, there are three ways to perfection. And there's sadhana siddha, which is perfection attained through following the principles and regulations of devotional service and executing them. There's nitya siddha, which is the process of eternal perfection attained by always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him. And third is kripa siddha, which is the perfection attained by the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the great Vaishnavas. And Krishnadas Kaviraj, he stressed that we take kripa siddha. Take it seriously. It is sad when we limit ourselves, but we should know that when we do that, when we say we're too tired, too weak, we don't have this, we don't have that to do our service, then we should understand this is our lack of faith. Srila Prabhupada's strength, his power was in his faith for his spiritual master. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says all created beings having their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. Whatever abilities or qualities we may think we have, they have come from Krishna. And he could take them away at any time. Or he could maintain them with us, like he did with Srila Prabhupada, to the point where he preached to his very last breath. We need to remember how rare it is that we've come to Krishna consciousness and how valuable and fortunate one is to be here. We have to take our responsibilities seriously. We must never become proud. Actually, pride will lead to our fall down. As a saying, pride before the fall. And it is the mind and false ego that wants to tell us how great we are and how important we are. But and if anyone should to disagree with that thought, there could be serious complications. But it's not about what happens to us. It's about what happens for us. Because Krishna wants us back to Godhead more than we want ourselves back. And so he's making all these arrangements. And whatever happens, we have to look for the lesson in humility, the lesson in tolerance, the lesson in patience, the lesson in devotion. We have to look at that. And we have to have these challenges and difficulties. We have to understand these are lessons in passionate to each other. because the material world is very challenging and very difficult for everyone. Don't think if you're having a bad day that you're the only one, because it's such that it's amazing if you have a good day in the material world. If we have some experience in Krishna consciousness, we must be helpful and encouraging to lead by example. The material world is very challenging and cruel. And we should never think that I'm an advanced devotee just because we may have been here for some time. Krishna does not like pride in his devotees, even from his topmost devotees. Srila Prabhupada says when a theatrical actor dances with a group of dancing girls, this is called rasa. And he explains in the Krishna book, when Krishna had the rasa dance, that it was the full moon of the Sarat season, which is the most beautiful season of all year in Vrindavan, because it's fragrant with all kinds of blooming flowers. It's a very special, special time. And Krishna remembered that the gopis had prayed to the goddess Katyayani to have him as their husband. So in order to satisfy the desire of the gopis, he fulfilled the desire by playing on his flute and calling them to the forest in the dead of night. In the Krishna book, it explains Krishna is always full in all his opulences, so he's never in desire of anything or need of anything. And that this is yoga maya, this relationship between Krishna and the gopis. It's compared in the Chaitanya Charitamrita like gold is to iron. Gold is a metal, iron's a metal, but the value of gold is so much greater than metal. So when young boys go to dance with young girls, like they do all over the place, this is iron. It's a material thing. Its quality is completely different. And Krishna dancing with the gopis may appear to be like a mundane thing, but Vaishnavas appreciate it because they know the difference between love and lust. So in the dead of night, under the Sarat full moon, Krishna sounded his flute, and the gopis came with transcendental desires to serve Krishna. Krishnadas Kaviraj explains that lust means sense gratification, but love means sense gratification. And the gopis had no desire to satisfy their own lust. Their desire was to please Krishna, to satisfy Krishna. And this is spiritual activity, is when the consciousness is completely absorbed in trying to please the Lord. The parikya rasa is abominable in the material world. In the spiritual world, it's a super excellent relationship between Krishna and his devotees. So when they were dancing and enjoying, and the gopis, they're thinking, oh, Krishna is just dancing with me. I have his full attention. They became a little proud. And at that time, as Krishna knew, they were becoming proud because he's in everyone's heart. And he immediately disappeared from the arena. So if he's going to disappear from the gopis, what will happen to us if we become proud? So he did this to show his causeless mercy and to curb their pride. He immediately disappeared. Krishna is the most renounced. He doesn't need any of us, but we completely need him. If through the mercy of the holy name, chanting our minimum 16 rounds a day with full consciousness, with full dedication, crying out, begging, like a child cries for its mother for the holy name, for its devotional service, for purity, for becoming a devotee, we can know we will be protected from this material energy. So it's not about what happens to us. it's about what happens for us. We just take it as a direction, as a sign of what Krishna is expecting and wants from us. So I'm going to end here and open it up if anyone has any questions or comments or additions or subtractions.
Thank you for that. Nice nectar about Srila Prabhupada and his mood and mission. Okay, so if anyone has any comments or questions, you can unmute and ask, or you can write on the chat. Okay, while you're thinking about it, I just have to tell you one thing, that from tomorrow, the Bhagavad Gita class will be in Srila Prabhupada's house from 5 p.m. till 6 p.m. Indian time. And I have yet to hear whether it will be on perhaps Vrindavan.tv or YouTube. I'm not sure yet, because they've changed the system lately and I'm not sure what they're doing. So as soon as I know, I will put a notice somewhere. Okay, does anyone want to have any input about today's class?
Thank you everyone for coming. And thank you for this opportunity. And thank you for your time, for your service. Lavangala.
Prashanta will keep you busy doing something else, right?
Yes. Seems like she started.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.